Welcome to another interview with cast and crew of Theatre Night in Merrickville. I am Helen Stingler, the president, and with me today is Peter Boire, a longtime member. Peter, when did you join Theatre Night in Merrickville?
That goes back a long way. It was, I believe, the spring of 1984. I did my first show.
And that show was?
That was a show called Picnic on the Battlefield. It was a one-act play, a farce, and really obscure kind of a theater nouveau play selected by Donna Hutchins. She was one of the founding members of TNIM with her husband, Nigel. And she cast me as Zeppo in this, and my Bradley Smith was Zappo. And that was the first play.
And were you involved with theater before joining Theatre Night in Merrickville?
The only involvement I had is that I had been to see one of the productions, which was performed at the public school. And Joy Smith, that was her name at the time, she was in that along with Bradley. And gee, I can't quite recall the name of the show, but that was my first exposure. And I was charmed, of course, and excited to get involved.
Where did you produce that show? Was it at the community? I know you said you went to, well, if you hosted the EODL, we would have done it in the community center. So
yes, it was done in the community center. And Tim and Shirley Malloy were my parents in that show. And at one point, we were all ducking and hitting the dirt when an explosion had occurred. And it actually caught some of the decorations on the stage, started to smolder. And Tim Malloy, who had been wounded by one of these faux explosions, had to reach out his hand very, very slowly and carefully and put out the fire.
Very realistic, I guess.
I guess it was.
How many more productions have you been in? Can you recall?
Well, I've had to do some research, and I was quite surprised, actually. I have been actually performed in 25 TNIM productions.
That's quite the number.
Yeah. Well, it's been, I'm in my 38th year, which is another impressive number.
That's true, it is, yes.
Well, when I started, Helen, I was a young man. I was 33 years old, and now I'm 70. So I have grown old with TNIM.
Haven't we all, actually?
And it's been really helping me to stay young, actually.
Of all the roles that you did, do you have a favorite role?
That's really difficult, but yes, I do. I think I've narrowed it down to two, and the most prominent among those would be Lend Me a Tenor. That was performed in 2000. I was 50 years old, and I was really blessed and thrilled to be selected by Margaret Shearman to play the lead role in that play, and it was just a delight. Excellent cast. I got to be on stage with Dick Shearman, directed by Margaret, and she, just in the selection of that play to be produced by us, was a brave move. And she just instinctively knew that we could pull this off. But boy, we had our doubts. It was tough. There was a lot of singing. And one of the actors who had to sing for the first time on that was Scott Hutchison. He used to be called Animal. He used to like to be called Animal. And he would have this expression. He'd say that his voice would kill a deaf dog. And he was proven wrong, because by the time we went on, he and I were singing a duet from Verdi, a Verdi opera, and we pulled it off rather well, I think. And again, that was probably the most delightful thing I've ever done.
There was a lot of fancy costumes in that too, if I recall the pictures.
It stretched TNIM on every level. The set was brilliantly done and difficult. The costumes, as you mentioned, were right off the charts. I mean, and in a couple of major cases, they were, for me and Scott, they were completely made. They weren't costumes that we just resized so that we'd fit them. These costumes were completely made from scratch. A jester costume, I would say, would be the nearest, most accurate description of it. Your classic jester costume. And anyway, probably the biggest stretch I've ever had to do as an actor. And it may be the biggest stretch TNIM has ever done, although we certainly have got some wonderful productions, difficult productions over the years.
That we have. I know you've directed quite a number of plays. Is there anyone that stands out as your favorite for directing?
That is very difficult to answer because I have not had a bad experience directing a play. I have had experiences where leaving the house, Pam would say, have fun. And I turn and I say, it's not fun, it's work. And I meant it, but it was extremely rewarding work. And so to come up with one, well, I think The Field and The Importance of Being Earnest are the two that really stand out for me. I have directed, well, if you count Death Trap that we got derailed on because of COVID, that is my 10th play that I will be directing for TNIM. But I just say The Importance of Being Earnest and The Field, both very challenging. I have a story about The Importance of Being Earnest. I researched that quite a bit, and I learned a lot about Oscar Wilde. And he, of course, a very famous, very popular English playwright and author, and famous for saying silly things like, I can resist anything except temptation. But I researched him and found that he was quite a notorious character, and it had a big effect on how I was going to present his most famous play, The Importance of Being Earnest. And I determined that I was going to do it as a comical farce with slapstick. And I had never seen the play performed like that. I think it has been performed like that since I did it. But I don't know, it was very challenging, and I was really blessed to have a fine young actor called Ron Ferguson, who's now I believe he's the director of the Upper Canada School Board, which is a pretty important job, quite a young, talented guy. That would be that and The Field, which of course was very challenging. It was a dark, dark play about Ireland and how powerful an influence the land, the physical land that a farmer would work and live through. And I compared that to the influence of the Catholic Church on the country. And I worked both of those things quite a bit into the dialogue and into the presentation, the visual effect of the play rather than the dialogue. And had a great deal of fun and very, very challenging. And everybody, a big cast, we all wrote to it. Elizabeth, my stepdaughter, was 12 years old and had a role in that play.
It's always nice when we can include the younger members, isn't it?
It certainly is. Yeah, that's how we stay alive.
It's true. Other than acting and directing, how else have you been involved with Theatre Night in Merrickville?
I've been involved with every aspect, from backstage crew to sound, lights, pretty much all of it. The only thing I haven't done is makeup, I guess. And I think we can all be happy about that.
You have written a couple of plays, haven't you, Peter?
Yeah, 2 of the plays I directed of the 10, I wrote myself. Had a wonderful experience in the summer. Oh, good grief, many years ago. Because I don't know whether you know, but I was an avid boater for many, many years. And I had a great big cabin cruiser. I used to keep it over at Ailing's Marina. And one year, this beautiful little tugboat showed up at the marina that Steve Flewitt, the owner of the marina, had purchased. And it was red with a black hull, and it had been used in logging. So it was designed so that it would rock from side to side very easily and constantly. And I was inspired by that fun little boat to write a play called Rocky the Real Red Tugboat. And we performed that with a bunch of children and an arch villain, the type that ties innocent young ladies to the railroad tracks. And just had a wonderful, wonderful experience with that play. But I broke my rule. It was performed and auditioned, and all of our practices were performed in the summer, which is something I generally don't like to do. Theater is my winter interest.
And where was that performed, Peter? It was obviously going to have to be outside because you've got a boat, right?
Yep. We had we did that in the basin between the two of the locks behind the United Church here in town. And the Parks Canada cooperated fully with us. They actually stayed late every day for the 3 or 4 days that we performed it. They stayed late to assure the proper operation of the locks, etc. And we hid the boat in the lock with the gates closed so that the audience couldn't see it. And then we'd open the gates and bring out the boat on cue. I had a little walkie-talkie and said, okay, cue the tugboat.
That's really interesting. That's neat.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone who is thinking of joining community theater?
Well, that's a difficult one for me. I get so much out of it. Firstly, you need to be a social person. You need to enjoy the company of other people, and I do. And I'd say that if you're sitting at home watching the television or reading a newspaper and the wind is howling outside, I can guarantee you're going to have an awful lot more fun trying to create something of value. And I think entertaining a large group of people and having them be very appreciative of your efforts is a worthwhile undertaking. And it's certainly extremely rewarding to create something out of nothing and through the talent and hard work of a large or a small group of people. I know the last play I directed was a work of art. It was just the three of us working away and working hard. And we came up with a pretty imaginative effort, I thought, and enjoyed the process very, very much. So if you think you should develop your social skills and have a lot of fun doing it, get into community theater.
That's great. Thank you.